families that weren't on there. And never did a weekly letter, never did, because there's spots on there to post your schedule, you can post events, you can post, it's all right there.
Documents.
Instantly you see when your parents see it. They're always commenting, there's always a discourse. Our parents have carried it into the summer. They're using it to communicate among one another.
I had some parents who planned like a play date. They were going to surprise all their kids and meet at Saratoga Park. And I thought, how fantastic is that? I mean, they even just use it for that. Or they'll say, one time a parent popped in and said, hey, I can't make this conference time. I'd like to go between here and here. Can someone switch with me? So I didn't have to go, hey, can you switch? No, okay, can you switch? They got it all figured out by themselves. It was awesome.
And they'll answer each other's questions like, oh, I thought they were such and such. Somebody else will chime in and say, no, it's blah, 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 and they'll fill in the details. And the kids get involved. Like, so parents read, they know everything their kid, so when their kid comes on, they say, hey, you were talking about spiders today, and you learned that they, there's your communication, that piece where you can't, it's not that kids can't or won't, it's just that it's not where their heads are after school. And this brings it all back in, and they would, and we post pictures.
So you went up every day? You went on every
And
day?
it doesn't take long. I mean,
No,
it
it's
takes
all
like
fast.
5, maybe 10 minutes.
Once you become
Yes,
Right.
proficient.
So the first couple times it takes 9 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been longer
We're not working together on this.
Yes, we would post.
I'm glad.
Little sheet that goes that says this person can't be on or something?
I did, I think we sent a note home initially saying if there's anybody that objects to having their child. But, you know, it's just the families that see it. So whether you were sending that photo home in a book or whatever, same thing, it's the same group of people that are gonna see it. But I think we did offer a courtesy that way, saying that if they had any objections to that. When we did, or like, I think the project-based learning, when we had our projects all done and we had done it on a Glogster, I put the Glogster on there, our end of the year video, everything was right there. Everything.
I mean, you can record them presenting something like a reader's theater or anything, and you can pop that on there. And the greatest thing then is that parents can comment, like you can say something like, parents, can you give encouraging words to the kids? And then you can go back the next day. It would be awesome if I could pull it up and say, boys and girls, let's read what the parents said. But
see the year.
But I can say, you know what parents said last night? You know, Ryler's dad really complimented Joey on, so great. Yeah, so great.
You know, I think like if you have your iPad or your iPhone, you could hook it up. You can't use your active board, but you could hook it up so you can view it and scroll and show them what's on there so you can log on through yours.
It would be so,
And you could actually put the actual word on adapt, like the thing that
I'm
you're
so glad
here right now,
that
you can adapt them with iPad.
So you walk the rest of the day
For it.
the other thing that Allie did that was really awesome, and I'll try it next year, is we did sign with our kids because of the 70 words, so we signed the words, just another way to drive it home. And she would videotape herself and say, these are our words for the week, and this is the sign.
Like I would just sit this on my lap and just record myself with the Dell thing that's on our computer, and then I would just upload the video, and then parents would, you know, they'd show it to their kids, they'd do it, they'd learn the signs, and they'd do it.
Songs, and we were learning numbers. I'd say, okay, if we get this down, I'm going to record you and put it on Facebook, and you know,
My daughter sent her teacher last year, she had a blog, and it was
Yeah.
very cool, but all I kept hearing was, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of work
Yeah.
to set up. And
This-
why did
this
this one
wasn't.
create more work?
this was not, and I'm not techie like she is.
Which,
Oh, sorry.
which person were you taking the class from that you have to dig?
Oh, it was through my master's program, so I don't know that. I can't even tell you his name. But he just encouraged it. I went here and figured it out.
Do you use
Matt.
Facebook?
No.
If you know someone who
I grew up
uses
on
Facebook and knows how to just create a group, like if you know someone who knows how to do that, or if you know how to do that, you just create a group and you just change the privacy settings so it's private unless you're a member of the group. And it's as simple as that. And
He
then
will give you,
just ask someone how to
Yeah.
the directions are
We can
on
help.
his blog.
They are.
Somebody must have caught on, because she said, I can't get on anymore, it won't work.
Oh,
No.
nabbit.
If
Yes.
you have it, you
use Edmodo. Edmodo is a site that's set up just like Facebook, but it's for educators, and that's, you can go ahead and set up it almost looks like Facebook, but it's for educators and for students
Oh, yeah,
and
I've
for
seen that
parents.
before. Yeah.
And so you can do kind of what you're saying, and just like on Facebook, but you do it on Edmodo.
What my professor would have said is that by going to Facebook,
That's what
parents are
connects
there.
They're already there.
Yeah, they're there. And that's, yeah. Yeah.
You know,
That, he said that's the hook point. That's why he kept pushing me, like I was saying this is, he's like, no,
And so many of them have it on their
Because-
phone. You know, like I'll
Yeah.
post a picture, I'll post something, and I instantly, within like 5 seconds, have 3 parents that like it or made a comment or whatever.
and not being so advanced, this was my first year, but I did a private Shutterfly page, just because I wanted to share my pictures instead of me printing, because I like real pictures. And I just kind of compared it, because I said, I scrapbook, and so whenever I got a real picture of my daughter at school, I really like that. So this way they can log on and, you know, all the pictures, and I can sort them out by Halloween or whatever. And I'm sure you can change your settings, but for like Shutterfly, once a week, like every Friday, it sent an email out to any family who had Shutterfly or signed up for Shutterfly saying that Mrs. Tammy's preschoolers posted pictures. But there were also things where you could put notes and do some of those kinds of things in Shutterfly, but
Olivia's teacher made a photo book for the year, and she just actually posted it, so we can go in and just buy it. Or we can adapt it.
And these parents have went in, and one parent said, I printed off 100 pictures from the year, and they've made their own books with whatever pictures that they wanted to.
All of her pictures are there, all of her videos are there.
But there's, notes, I mean, there's other things you can post on there, I just haven't explored any of that. My
First time teacher.
Yeah. My whole focus
I
was-
should remember that. I think though, you know, like she said, parents are already on Facebook. I wouldn't probably sometimes take the time to go to their sites. I mean, if I get an email, because I do check my email, I look at it.
Right.
But Ms. Turnus, I had no idea. I mean, she just sent so much stuff. The Harlem Shake, I had no idea they even did a Harlem Shake. My daughter didn't say a word about the Harlem Shake until I see this video on Facebook, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the first time I did a Harlem Shake, I about died. I would never have known it.
And with the
without that
Facebook page, you
communication.
would have had it instantly
Right,
on your phone
instantly,
at the end of the day, and you would have that's the beauty. I don't know.
It was great.
It was
and I wouldn't
just-
have probably, if she would have said, go to this link, do this,
Yes.
this, I probably would have taken the 2 seconds because, you know, you're just so busy. But it popped up on my Facebook, it was there, I could watch it without pushing any buttons, and I loved it.
One thing you cannot forget about though are the parents who aren't on Facebook.
Yes.
So I had 2. I had one that just said no. Like I tried to coax and I said even if you don't use it for anything else, but you just use it for this page and after you delete it, not going to. And the other ones they didn't have a computer. So, but you can't forget about them because at the beginning of the year I was really good about sending stuff home, and then as the year went on, I don't know if I got ornery or whatever the case was, but I didn't. I did not send things home as like I should have. And I felt bad because I thought that's not fair because these people are getting everyday access. And especially for the kid who didn't have a computer, he didn't have a choice. His parents didn't have a choice. And so that wasn't fair to them. But that's one thing that you just can't forget
Have you
about.
checked out for sure that your pictures are, I know because you have your own page and your own, only those people, but I know like even if I put pictures on and I have only friends can view it and not friends of friends and everybody else, didn't I read somewhere that Facebook truly owns all those pictures out there and that they can really do whatever they want, even though only my friends can see it, so that's.
My husband has
I
tried,
don't know if
and he's
that's
really
for
techie, and
anything.
he
Put it
tried,
online somewhere.
he tried like everywhere to get to it, and he couldn't. But he's not that great. I'm sure if you really, really wanted to, you could.
It is kind of a loss to the world. The parents have, I mean, initially when we were trying to work on the bugs, the parents couldn't find us. Like, it wasn't an easy, like, it's in there, it's hidden. I don't know why or how or what but
And do you send out invites, and is that how you got them?
they
or
have
how-
to ask to join the group.
Oh, you have to accept them.
And then you have to accept them. And then, like I said, you have to be friends in that little intro, but that can be a matter of seconds. Like, I friend you, I pop you in, I defriend you. And I tell parents I'm gonna do that, I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, I'm a teacher. But, so I just tell them up front, you know, your privacy, my privacy, we're gonna be friends, and then defriend you, so privacy.
You can also do a separate account, because I know my daughter made a Facebook page for our dog, so Bob both has his own Facebook page.
Yeah.
And once in a while she updates it.
And have pancakes.
Yes,
Bad
chocolate chips.
I know. That is F-I-A.
I know. All right. Do what? Say it one more time.
Apparently not.
Say it one more time. What did you say?
No,
Tana knows I
have
talked to
it.
Tana.
I've been emailing back and forth with Tana all the time.
Because we've been trying to get Tana to say
I've been
that we
sending
have
her
it.
my responses from parents saying they want this is such an incredible tool for parent communication. And it bounces back to, at kindergarten, they're not gonna go on and type in a blog, but at kindergarten, if they see their parents communicating with us and they're part of that communication family, you're still building. Yes, there's horrible things.
Horrible things on
Google.
I was shocked, I was like, I couldn't get on it fast enough.
Well, the reason I asked is because I'm going through something else that I just.
Yeah. So anyway, Tana is, I've very much been, because I've been trying to get her to talk to the darn thing.
Yeah, it'll happen eventually with that.
It will, I think with time it will, that's what we're.
Well, and like the schools, all the Facebook pages, what are we doing? Like, here's your Facebook page, but go on it. So, anyways, you're right.
We need to keep moving. So,
We do.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of jump into the next section, but it's on page 35, so we're still in chapter 4. That's where it starts, at least, the section on mini lessons. So before we do that, and now that you've seen some mini lessons, we've talked a little bit about them, some questions that we want to ask before we get diving into this part of the chapter is, if you do mini lessons or you've seen them, what do yours look like? Are there any things that you find difficult, or is there ever anything scary about them? Or if you haven't started it yet, and what are some fears that you have, or what do you see being difficult? So think about that just for a minute, and then when you're ready, would you just share with someone next to you about a few of those questions?
Yes,
Oh my gosh, there's another teacher.
I modeled it, but that was in my training. Never reread. We have to get in so much more than we have. So it's like, exactly. That is. I did that in school. To mentor that. I know that's what, exactly. That's yes, and she's and I would just
20 more seconds.
But of course, in small group.
10 more seconds.
It's
Okay, so would someone like to share what are some things that are going well? Let's start with that. What are some things that are going well for you?
doing things we never did before.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? It feels kind of good.
They're really empowering children.
Yeah.
I feel like I do a really good job demonstrating. I learned that word last week rather than modeling. Demonstrating. But you know, like pausing to reread one's writing. I do that all the time when I'm modeling the writing. Oh, let's go back, start with sentence 1. Are we okay? Are we okay? Okay, now remember when you're writing, reread your work. You know what I mean? Where I demonstrated it, but I never called it a mini lesson. You know, it's just,
You'll be more
well, no wonder they
intentional.
weren't good rereaders of their writing, because, you know, I just felt like osmosis is gonna happen if I'm demonstrating.
You will be amazed, especially when you dig into books or you see a list that someone else has made of mini lessons. Oh, I do that.
Yeah.
I do that.
It was like
I did
teaching
that.
the blend or whatever it was,
Yes.
teaching chunks or diagram. Well, yeah,
Yes.
chunks.
And I mentioned it
But-
yesterday when I was demonstrating a lesson, that don't go off on the tangents, don't, if your lesson is on editing, then make sure your lesson is on editing. You will be tempted to talk about the 50 trillion things because as teachers, we're teaching it awful. And you need to stay on that piece, you need to keep it short, and you need to bring that piece back at the end. That clears up that osmosis piece. We're not really, this is what we want, we're saying what we want, and we're looking for what we want, and we're asking, following through, did you do A, B, C?
So what are some things that you might find a little difficult? Or if you haven't started, what are some things that you kind of fear a little bit before you jump in?
Are there any starting lessons or a hierarchy, you know, just when you first start, I mean, you go to, you know, now that I know that, you know, when I teach reading every day, I can turn those into mini lessons, but do you start with what you're,
Start right here.
right there?
Start with the first lessons in this book.
The
If-
first-
If your muddy waters is where to start, right here, just take your ideas and go with them. And yours will emerge and develop.
This, however, does not have that very first lesson that we did, and I would suggest doing that.
That's my favorite.
Yeah. Even probably up to second grade even.
Oh,
Wouldn't you
I
think?
definitely think so.
Yeah, especially if you know that your kids have not gotten it. If you know that your
Is
kids
this
have.
writing?
So where did you get that?
Where we
lesson
did the
from?
scribbles.
Kelly Boswell.
We just watched her do it one
Oh,
time.
yeah.
So how long exactly will that book last you for the year then? Is that,
This would only be 1 hour, 1 month,
okay?
basically.
Yeah.
But
And
You
it's the
just
launch.
learn any lessons
Yeah.
to last for the
you're
year?
gonna watch your kids, you're gonna listen to your kids, you're gonna say, ooh, we need this, or, oh, we're not doing so good at managing our folders, we're gonna, and up front, that's what's gonna feel like. All your, not all, but many of your lessons are just on how we function in this workshop time.
So even with,
Well, you know, kind of, and I'm happy to type them and share that, like I have this, and then I have another list that I typed for my class, and if you kind of, it's kind of interesting, and the other thing that I find myself doing is I'll think, oh, my kids need, so I'll think, okay, that's my mini lesson tomorrow. And then if I look through like my exploration book, which is filled with mini lessons, somebody's done it. Like they've already put the format in there and polished up the language. So I start here, and now, initially I didn't reference those books. I didn't have it all connected. And I would just go with it and feel my way through it and pretty it up as I went. But now I kind of know that if I have an idea, it probably cropped up for about 15 other people too, and it's probably already done. And I kind of skim over to see if anybody did something similar. If not, I just go with what I know and what I know my kids need. And if somebody scripted it and fine-tuned it.
And I know that there are a lot of schools, this isn't about this necessarily, but there are a lot of schools that are starting to get like explorations and like crafting nonfiction. When we got the crafting nonfiction book, we were like, oh my gosh, we've taught so many of these lessons and we've made them up ourselves. They're right here. Why have we done that? So like Julie said, it probably is somewhere else.
Our kids
You
need
don't
to
have to make it
universal.
up.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so going kind of on to page 36 and beyond. Before we dive in, is there anything that when you were reading, at least in that first section of the beginning of each writing instruction, is there anything that stuck out to you guys that you'd like to share?
I guess I always struggled with multi-leveling, like and it talked about during the mini lessons we teach about strategies that they can use, and they're often multi-level. And I guess how do you go about multi-leveling it when you're doing a large mini lesson?
I think you're reading your group.
Okay.
Like we talked about yesterday, would you, if there's 5 of your students that really aren't getting a particular skill, would you teach on that? Or would you teach to push your group and address those 5 more individually via conference or small group kind of thing? So there again, it's your read about where you want to take your group or where your group needs to be.
you said kind of about 80%.
I
It's needed by about 80%.
That would, yeah. I think you just have to gauge it. And sometimes, because you see some kid glom onto quotation marks, and this shouldn't be frequently because of course you are trying to teach, you're going to throw something out there for your high kids. And it's going to be lost on your lower kids. They're going to see you writing, and they're going to see you using spaces, and they're going to see you using great language.
But they've heard it.
And yes, so it's still happening for them, but your high kids now just have this golden nugget that they can't wait to go
Yeah, so throw those in once in a while, because those high kids, they just can't wait to do the next thing. And when we talked about the beginning of the writer's workshop, we were talking about signals that we use. So we mentioned how we use the handwriting without tears sentence spool, and how there's that song, and that's often our signal for that. Yep, we're gonna start writer's workshop now, so everyone come. I had this thought, and I told Julie about it yesterday. We were watching Anchorman, because we're really excited that the second Anchorman is coming out. And so when he's like, news team, assemble, I said, how cool would it be if he went, writers, assemble? And then they did this little chant as they were cleaning up and coming. So I guess that's another question that we have for you. When you start your writer's workshop, is there any particular signal or chime or anything or fun little saying that you say to get your kids started?
Maybe you have a daily 5 chime or
Yeah.
signal, and you could take it across into the writing area, that
Is
sort
there
of thing.
anything that you guys share that you want to?
What demo did we see? Oh, math, in the math one. They used like a tuning fork chime thing, and it was,
Yeah.
looked like a wand, but it, when they dinged it, it went ding, ding, ding. It was kind of fun. Kind of
I
cool.
have that no-yell bell that the kids really like.
What's a no yell?
It's a bell and it's got.
It's from Highlight.
Yeah, it's from
Yeah.
Oh,
Highlights.
you push the button and it makes all
Yeah.
different
Yeah, you
sounds
turn
and
it
stuff?
to different, whatever one.
Is it tolerable, or is it like?
It depends on which one you choose. One's a ticking clock, one's I don't remember. Then I got another one and I gave it to one of my colleagues, Ms. Turner, hers came with stickers. I'm like, if I'd have known that, I'd have taken the stickers out, because then the stickers show which is which. Yeah.
That would be important.
I use a rain stick. My kid's like,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
cool.
nice.
That is.
That would be cool.
It would actually give like a transition time too, because it takes a while for them to.
Especially for a big one.
I use 2 things. I use chimes to like transition and make like easy transitions. But then you know like those like dinner service bells, ding ding. Like
Yeah, oh, yeah.
I'll ding that twice if they're supposed to come up and meet with me.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's.
it's like there's 2 different things and they just tune
They
their
know.
ears
They know
to
which
it.
one.
Yeah, they know which one it is by the second day of school. So.
And I use it, Alan does too, but train whistle.
Oh,
It's a nice one, it's not a nasty one, that's nice.
A couple of us started using, the kids really like it, so I was just thinking, instead of the word class, you could use writers, like we'll go class, they'll go
Yes.
they'll go class be class, they'll go yes
Yes,
and yes. So you could do the same
Or
thing, like
teaching.
writers,
Yes.
or something
If you had a
like that.
chant or the creed you mentioned yesterday, and then I think about that when I was doing daily 5 in the beginning, when they're all like going out to do their things, we would do a chant, like, oh, just let them get there. And we did the Chicka Chicka Whole Potato. It was the John Archibald, and it ends with readers, yes, 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 but they were very into that, and it took them, it let them get that noise out and get to their spots and have a little bit to say. Yeah, so all of those things, chants, keywords, nice sounds. Yeah.
Do you, she recommends using the same one kind of throughout the day, like for your daily or whatever. I mean, that would just use.
I don't know, I do, I use my whistle, whistle's all I have. We already did that.
Yep. One of the next parts that it talks about on page 36, it says, during the mini lesson, we teach children a strategy they can use often as they write. And I think about this all the time. I know I keep referring back to Kelly Boswell, but she said that when you are teaching kids, if you are teaching them a mini lesson and you can't see the point of it and you're not quite sure how they're going to use it, and it is not something that they're going to use today and every day for the rest of their lives as a writer, don't teach it. Unless they're going to use it when they're an adult, don't teach it to them. I mean, there might be little things here or there where you really see this could really benefit them, at least in their first few years, but for the most part, I mean, I don't want to go to a class and I don't want some teacher to teach me something that I'm going to use just for that day and then I'm never ever going to use again, so. And that's one thing I say to my kids all the time. I don't know why I haven't said it yet, but I say, boys and girls, today we're going to learn about something that we're going to use today and every day for the rest of our lives as a writer. And they say it too, are we going to use this forever as writers?
Like, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
To set that in their minds, and they just know how useful it's going to be. And there again, another mini lesson, you need to show them your journals. You need to go around your house, you need to collect notes, things you've written, and you need to pull that out in a mini lesson. and demonstrate to them who you are as a writer. And if you're a writer with the technology piece, then you show them that. But they need to see it. They need to see what you're doing. Yes. And yeah, that's the second piece of that. I wrote this because I needed to remind myself of these jobs. I wrote this because I was feeling really sad. I wrote this because I really wanted to remember this. They need to know that. They need to hear that. And separately.
Probably the last part that we're going to have time to go into today is the heart and soul of the writing workshop, and that starts on page 37. So this is really when children are working. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What are they doing? And she mentions in here that when you get kids started, when we talked about the room arrangements and how it needs to be so independent that they can go get their things and then go get started, it says that so much time is lost in transition. And I know that I felt that so many times. If I haven't set up a good routine for the kids, that I can feel it. Like I feel tense. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have to teach them about this. And if we haven't, they spend time wandering or looking, and really to teach them that you have wonderful ideas, you don't want to forget about those. Get that down on that paper, go get your things and go get started, and how important that is to do that.
The urgency.
Yeah. And one other thing that she says is after you have the kids circled up with you and you ask them what they're going to write about, to say off you go. And I love that. I just love that language.
And Kelly uses that language, Lucy uses that language. It's kind of interesting that both of them choose it. It does sound nice, it feels good too. And there again, like if you think that's time consuming to check in with all your kids, there are levels of it. Like you said, like one kid might have come in that morning and said, just shared with you something very exciting. I'm gonna write about that. You don't have to know when you send that kid document, look at them and say, I bet I know what you're writing about today, don't kinda. You might also have on the other end that kid that he's gonna tell you, I'm gonna write about my dog, which you're gonna need to know more, because for him just to give you a word about his topic is not enough. Tell me. You're gonna have that feel for your kids. Some are gonna be able, like I said, you'll send them off with a nod, some one word will do, and others are gonna have to give you that beginning sentence of what they're gonna put on their paper. It's just really just knowing your kids. It's all over the place.
Did you guys read about the part that talked about the mid-workshop partnerships, like where they get together and they talk about how their writing has gone? I'm not quite sure. I think that is on about page 39 about how they work with each other, conversations in their writer's workshop. And that's one thing that I guess I've never done, but I think about that and how beautiful that can be. So, you know, Tyler and Chris, they're partners, and in the middle of their writing we stop, and they are expected to have done their best work up to that, you know, up to that point, and then they share with a partner and they talk about, you know, how could we, what have you done so far? I'm going to give you a compliment, I'm going to give you a wish, something I wish you continue to work on. What do you guys think about that? Have any of you ever done anything like that with your kids?
I did it a little bit with parents in
Oh.
those green journals that, the cursed green journals.
Yeah.
And I would have the children choose 3 of their writings that they were particularly fond of, and then send it home with the parents with a letter, cover letter saying, please check for 3 that you like best and indicate why you like them best, and then suggest to your child something that you'd love to have them share about in your journal so you could read it later. And so it was a written conversation, but it was pretty powerful because kids were pretty excited. Sometimes their parents brought up connections they hadn't thought to reflect on.
Yeah.
And remember that trip we took to such and such, and how you did this or that. Anyway, so.
That's cool. I started towards the very end of the year doing mid-workshop mini lessons, and I got the idea from the coaches, and they said they went up to a teacher at Sunrise, a kindergarten teacher who was doing that. So they did their mini lesson, and the kids went and they started working, and then about halfway through, she'd stop the class. And how I did it, I just had all the kids come back to the carpet, and as I was working with the kids or I was conferring with them, I'd really pick one student. Most of the time it was what we had done the mini lesson on, sometimes it wasn't. but usually it was, if it was finger spaces, I was walking around and Johnny was working so hard on finger spaces, so Johnny, can we share yours at our mid-workshop mini lesson? We just put it underneath the Elmo, and then as the author, he came up and he read it and he said, look what I've done, and then it gave him that, and it gave the rest of the kids, oh, I'm not using finger spaces, that's right, I'm gonna go back to my desk and I'm gonna go do that. And so it kind of gives them that little nudge to say, look what my friends are doing, and then it helps refocus them, because once they get to that point where they can write for 45 minutes, you still have some that can't, they just can't do it. And so it gives them almost a little break, and then they can go get started again.
That particular teacher doesn't have an Elmo in her room, but she uses a flip camera.
Yes,
And then she
yep.
has her computer set up right at the front, so she just plugs the flip, she takes a quick snapshot of it, plugs the flip camera in, flashes it up, says look what, and highlights that point, and
Yeah.
it's done. It's just so quick, so smooth.
And it's only like it's like a quick 2-minute, minute and a half thing. Yeah.
And then everybody spaces.
And then everybody, right?
Yeah.
Everyone
They
does.
wanna do what,
Oh,
yeah.
And there are so many things that we would love to get from you guys yet today, but we're gonna dive a little bit more into mini lessons tomorrow. We're kind of running out of our time here today. So what we would like to do for the last 5 minutes, we're gonna revisit our Google Docs really quick, and we're gonna see if any of your questions or any of your goals or any of your needs have been met yet. Okay. So we talked about the folder system. How does everyone feel with a folder system, especially if that was a goal or a need that you were feeling? Does that feel a little bit better?
It's messy.
It is. It is. When we were talking about that, we said we just want teaching to be like so pretty and perfect and clean, and it's usually not.
You know, I correlate that to thinking about a library though. If you go into a library and all the books look brand new, it's not a library. Things should look worn and used. And if
It's
that's,
not messy, but yeah.
well,
Yeah.
but worn.
Sometimes,
You know, it's their Bible by the worn Bible that they bring to church, you know?
Yeah.
It's, if you're not using it, why have it?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I like that. Okay, the idea for 5 mini lessons, and we're gonna dig into that a little bit more tomorrow. The writing center, did that make a little bit more sense now that we've talked about that writing center and how it's a place where kids go to get things?
It really would be accessible at any time, whether you're doing science, whether you're doing free time, whether it's just accessible. It's just the tools that they know how to use.
So when you were talking about the writing center, and you said that's where it houses all the writing things, but they can write anywhere. I mean, can they just take a clipboard and go anywhere, no matter what?
And like during writing time?
Like during writing time or free choice time?
I never,
or-
free choice time, yes. Writing time, I never defined it, but there's so much that happens at a table. Maybe it'd be different if they had desks, and then you'd want to allow them, because conversation needs to be happening during writer's workshop. It's a key component to the building of the language and the ideas and things that go on. So I guess however you choose to structure that, I would just make sure that you're planning for that there can be an exchange among students.
Common Core writings, we're going to focus more on those on Thursday and tying all of that in together. And that goes along with some of this with the books that we have in our district. Finding more time to confer and conference with students, we'll dig in that tomorrow with our conferencing and more mini lessons, conferring ideas, writer's workshop.
We're moving through it. There's still very key pieces that we haven't.
Because really we've gotten to the managing and how to set it up, and now we're just getting into the mini lesson part and the heart of it.
And hopefully through all the model
Yeah.
lessons, you're just really pulling key pieces.
And then having instructional writing books to refer to, we're getting to that too. So we're getting there. I hope. You guys feel like we're getting somewhere. So our assignment that we have for you tonight is we would like you to read chapter 6 and chapters 9. And like I said, tomorrow we're going to focus more on those mini lessons. Finish up mini lessons, I should say, and then go into conferring. And so chapter 6, I think it's 6 that's on conferencing, and then 9 is assessment, but either way, the assessment goes in so much with the conferring, and so if you can take a look at those. And then I also said, if you have anything that you use, like I have specific papers that I use when I confer with my kids to write things down and take notes and refer back to. If you have those,
We're gonna share some of
I
those things
threw
from-
some of mine away, and so I'm gonna bring you blank ones. But, do you have them? So if you did throw them away, it's not a big deal, but if you have those, bring them so that we can see them. And then any other tools, maybe where you keep your things at, if you have a certain binder or a certain folder or folders for individual kids, anything, even if you have a picture, because I know we might have stuff in boxes or packed up or in our classroom and we don't want to go back, that's just fine. But if you have anything accessible, bring those. Accessible.
That's
It's a very cute word.
That's a key word right now.
That is.
You can climb
I know.
in my back room. You can find
Chapters 7 and 8, which we didn't put in there, not because we don't think they're important, but they're on
ELL.
ELL, English Language Learners. And the other one's kind of just some chunks, some different, I don't remember what ones are. I mean, worth reading, definitely worth reading.
Literacy instruction.
The link with literacy, so you're linked with your whole reading block and that sort of thing, which is very natural, but of course, you always learn something new when you read it. These are just the two that we'll spend time on in here.
So in here, we're not going to focus on those two chapters, but they are good and they are worth reading, so.
Yeah, all right. Anything?
She's on Facebook. Look at that.
See, then we should,
It's
She
illegal.
just said it had
Then
worked for a
tomorrow
while,
we
but she's
can-
like, oh my gosh, I'm on, and then you just type in that. and
Well,
hit
tomorrow
the-
we'll pop up.
We'll bring it up and we'll show you our pages
It's like, hit
tomorrow.
it over and over and over until it works.
She just said,
Okay,
tomorrow
thank you guys.
I'll come on back, it'll take a while.
But I got
What did you do?
Yeah.